Okay, let's unpack this. Forget Alexander the Great on horseback conquering continents. Imagine him uh, plunging into the ocean's abyss. Sounds like pure fantasy, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, the image of Alexander, descending into the deep in some kind of sealed vessel, which later ages would picture as a diving bell,
Yeah.
that's one that's captured imagination for centuries. But as far as mainstream history is concerned, it's firmly in the realm of myth.
Right, and that's exactly where this deep dive gets fascinating. We've got source material from one of our listeners that explores, well, precisely how this persistent medieval legend kind of jumps the tracks and becomes the absolute bedrock for a grand, sprawling conspiracy theory.
From popular fiction to hidden truth, essentially.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to take this material, explore the historical roots in the legend itself, understand the incredible claims the conspiracy theory makes, look at what proponents offer as evidence.
And then weigh that against the strong counter-arguments, the skeptical view.
Yeah, we're laying it all out so you can be well informed about this wild intersection of history, myth, and speculation.
Alexander the Great in a diving bell. I mean, even saying it out loud, it sounds completely wild right from the jump.
It really does. So, okay, let's anchor ourselves in history first. We're talking about Alexander III of Macedon, right? Lived 356 to 323 BC.
Right. And this was no ordinary figure, a military genius tutored by Aristotle himself. Took the throne at what, 20?
20 years old, yeah. And in just about a decade, he carved out one of the largest empires the ancient world had ever seen, Greece all the way to India.
And his ambition was just colossal. He wasn't just content with land conquest. He had this legendary thirst for knowledge, for glory, this driving need to explore and perhaps reach what he saw as the very edges of the earth.
You know, that historical reputation, the boundary pusher, the seeker of the unknown, it really makes him the absolute perfect figure for these kinds of fantastical legends to attach themselves to, doesn't it?
It really does. He's fertile ground for myth-making.
Yeah.
Now, about the historical accounts, the ones written by people who were actually there or wrote shortly after his death.
His own historians, yeah, like Ptolemy of Soter, who became pharaoh in Egypt, Aristobulus, Callisthenes.
Exactly. These guys documented his campaigns, his travels, even his intellectual pursuits in, remarkable detail.
And here's the crucial point.
Their detailed, authoritative accounts make absolutely no mention of any kind of underwater expedition, diving bell, or anything remotely like it. Nothing. Nada. Zip.
Okay, so if his actual historians didn't write about a dive, where did the story come from? How did it start?
Well, it originates primarily in a collection of narratives known as the Alexander Romance, sometimes called Pseudo-Callisthenes.
Pseudo-Callisthenes,
Yeah.
meaning not the real Callisthenes who wrote history.
Precisely. These texts started cropping up in the Hellenistic period after Alexander died, and they evolved dramatically over centuries. They really took hold and spread like wildfire throughout the Roman world, and especially the Middle Ages.
Ugh, the romance. So, less historical biography, more ancient fan fiction, basically. Is that fair?
That's a pretty good way to put it, actually. It's a blend of historical facts, sure, but mashed up with incredible myths, folklore, and completely fictional adventures. But it was incredibly popular.
Across cultures. Translated.
Yeah, into numerous languages. And it profoundly shaped how people in the medieval period saw Alexander as this almost mythical, superhero-like figure capable of, well, anything.
And this is where the diving bell finally shows up, in the romance.
Yes. Within the romance, the descriptions vary a bit, but it's often depicted as a glass barrel or some kind of sealed, transparent vessel.
Glass, under the ocean.
Well, yeah, remember, this is legend, not engineering. Sometimes it's even said to have a strange light source inside, like large cat's eyes or reflective stones. Alexander's typically alone in the bell,
Doing what? Just looking around.
observing the wonders or terrors of the deep-sea monsters, strange creatures, sometimes mermaids, even hints of underwater cities.
Okay, but what was the point of the dive within the context of that legend? Why have him do that?
It's usually framed by Alexander's boundless curiosity and ambition. He wants to explore all his domain, including the ocean depths, or maybe to gain some kind of secret knowledge hidden beneath the waves. It's a narrative device, really, to illustrate his insatiable drive and willingness to push human limits beyond the known world.
And this image, it really struck a chord visually, too. You mentioned that earlier.
Oh, absolutely. You see it everywhere in medieval art, illuminated manuscripts, carvings on cathedrals, tapestries. They frequently show Alexander and his bell, often suspended from a ship, surrounded by all sorts of fantastical sea life. These depictions truly solidified the image in the medieval cultural imagination.
So the mainstream historical view is crystal clear then. The Alexander romance is invaluable for studying literature, mythology, medieval culture.
Absolutely. For that.
But it is not considered a reliable source for historical facts about Alexander's life. The diving bell story, like him supposedly flying on griffins or having a horn.
Pure medieval fantasy and imagination. Exactly.
And what's fascinating here, you pointed this out, is how this clear distinction between historical fact and a very popular, persistent medieval legend becomes the perfect launching pad for the conspiracy theory.
Right. The gap between the dry historical record and the vivid, widespread myth is exactly where proponents claim a hidden truth lies. It's like, see, the real story is hiding behind the fantasy.
Okay, so we have the legend, born in fantasy literature, clearly not historical fact, but the conspiracy theory just flips that entirely on its head.
Completely. It says the legend isn't fantasy. It's a veiled account, maybe distorted over time, but of a real world-altering event that was deliberately suppressed.
That's the core premise then. It takes that widely known legend and says, okay, everyone knows this story, but what if that's just a distorted echo of something real that happened?
Mm-hmm. And this taps into some classic conspiracy theory tropes, doesn't it? According to the source material we have, like the idea of truth and legend.
Explain that one a bit.
Right. This is the belief that ancient myths, legends, folklore, they aren't just made-up stories. They contain hidden historical truths or maybe encoded knowledge, deliberately disguised.
So, for the Alexander theory.
Proponents argue that the sheer persistence and widespread nature of the diving bell story across different cultures and centuries must indicate it's based on something real. They pose the question, why would people invent something so technically specific, a sealed vessel for exploring underwater, unless it actually happened? The legend in this view is basically a breadcrumb trail left behind.
And it connects directly to the idea of advanced ancient technology. That seems key.
Absolutely crucial. The theory requires believing that ancient civilizations, or maybe select individuals, possess technology far, far beyond what mainstream historians acknowledge. This often links into ideas of out-of-place artifacts, or OPARTs.
Right, things found where they shouldn't technologically exist.
Exactly. Or the concept of lost, hyper-advanced civilizations like Atlantis. So if the ancients had such technology, then Alexander's diving bell wasn't some primitive glass barrel that would instantly shatter.
It was a marvel of forgotten engineering.
Precisely. Maybe even defying known physics.
And then the real kicker, hidden knowledge and a massive cover-up. Because if it happened...
Why don't we know about it? Exactly. Right. If this event was real and something truly profound was discovered, why isn't it part of our accepted history? The immediate conspiratorial answer is a deliberate, coordinated cover-up by powerful forces.
Well, the narrative shifts.
It shifts from it didn't happen because there's no evidence to it happened, but they made sure you wouldn't know about it. And this resonates deeply with a fundamental distrust of official narratives. You know, institutions, governments, academia.
Alexander himself feels like the perfect protagonist for this kind of hidden history story, doesn't he? His personality, his ambition?
He absolutely does. His documented historical reputation, relentless conqueror, boundary pusher driven by intellectual curiosity, almost boundless ambition. It makes him incredibly plausible within the theory's framework as someone who would seek out and potentially find a world-altering secret. His desire to reach the ends of the earth is kind of reinterpreted to include the depths of the ocean.
And the silence of those primary historical sources. In the conspiracy view, that's not proof it didn't happen.
No. That silence becomes prime evidence of the cover-up. The gaps left by the lack of historical record and the fantastical nature of the Alexander romance become spaces for the conspiracy theory to build its imaginative narrative, filling in the blanks with forbidden knowledge and deliberate suppression.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, according to the source. This theory doesn't just stand on its own, it seems to effortlessly fuse with other popular conspiracy ideas.
It does, it becomes a sort of nexus point. The source material mentions it intertwining with ancient aliens or ufology theories, suggesting perhaps the advanced tech or beings Alexander encountered underwater were extraterrestrial in origin.
Or maybe lost civilizations?
Right. It also links into lost civilizations, proposing the discovery related to Atlantean survivors or other pre-Diluvian races living in hidden underwater cities.
And it involves secret societies guarding the truth through the ages?
Definitely. Ancient orders or later esoteric groups like the Knights Templar or Freemasons are often woven in as the long-term guardians or inheritors of the secret knowledge Alexander supposedly discovered.
And eventually it connects to modern conspiracies.
Ultimately, yeah. Modern conspiracy narratives bring in the global elite or the deep state as the current custodians of this ancient suppressed information, actively ensuring it remains hidden today.
Wow. So the story isn't just about a single dive event. It escalates into this huge narrative about why humanity has been kept in the dark for millennia, involving layers and layers of hidden power groups.
It's a massive claim.
All right, let's get into the heart of it then. For those who believe this theory, what are the core tenets? What do they think Alexander actually did and actually found down there?
Okay, the absolute central belief is that the dive was real, and it was profoundly significant. It wasn't just Alexander, taking a quick peek underwater. It was a singular, potentially world-altering event, a genuine encounter with a reality hidden from the surface world.
And the bell itself, it wasn't just a barrel, it was way more advanced.
Absolutely. It's seen as an incredibly advanced piece of technology, orders of magnitude beyond anything remotely possible in the 4th century BC.
Where did they think it came from?
Well, the source describes a few theories on its origin. It could be extraterrestrial technology, either provided by aliens or maybe reverse engineered by Alexander's people from recovered alien craft. This tech would, defy known physics.
Giving things like
Perfect pressure equalization at incredible depths, maybe a self-sustaining oxygen supply, perhaps even self-generating light or propulsion systems, things way beyond ancient capabilities.
Or it could have been from a lost civilization, Atlantis again.
That's another key possibility within the theory, yeah.
Okay.
To be lost Atlantean or pre-Diluvian technology, a remnant from a hyper-advanced ancient civilization that Alexander either discovered or whose secrets were somehow passed down to him.
Any other ideas on the bell's origin?
A less common but related idea is that it was an anomalous human invention created by some unknown ancient genius, perhaps inspired by non-human sources. But the core idea is super advanced tech.
Okay, so he gets down there in the super tech bell. What was the secret? What did Alexander really see or discover that was so world-altering it needed covering up?
Right, this is the thrilling core that supposedly necessitates the massive cover-up. It wasn't just interesting fish or coral, it was something that fundamentally challenged humanity's understanding of itself and the world.
Like what? Give me examples.
Okay, possibilities include discovering ancient underwater civilizations, technologically advanced beings, maybe Atlanteans or other unknown races, living in actual cities on the seafloor.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. Or something even more out there.
Yes, direct contact with alien beings, or maybe encountering their bases hidden deep on the seafloor.
So, actual ET contact in 300 BC.
That's one thread. Alternatively, he might have discovered profound knowledge or artifacts, world-altering information or objects. The source mentions examples like blueprints for free energy systems or anti-gravity tech,
Whoa.
or maybe the true origins of humanity that contradict mainstream or religious narratives, understanding fundamental cosmic laws or spiritual truths, or even discovering actual portals or dimensional rifts to other realms.
So, really fundamental reality-shattering stuff.
Exactly, the kind of discovery that, if revealed, would change everything.
And the consequence of this discovery was an immediate and incredibly thorough cover-up. It had to be hidden, right away.
Precisely. The belief is that this knowledge or technology was deemed too dangerous, too disruptive to existing power structures, belief systems, human society as a whole.
Why hide it?
The reasons vary within the theory. Maybe to maintain existing power hierarchies, knowledge is power, right?
Whoa.
Or maybe out of fear the beings or technology encountered were too dangerous. Perhaps a desire for exclusive control by a select elite. Or even, some suggest, a mandate from the alien beings themselves demanding secrecy.
And who is allegedly involved in starting and maintaining this multi-millennial cover-up?
Well, it's theorized to have started potentially with Alexander himself, maybe passing the secret only to his most trusted generals and successors, the Diadochi, who recognized its potential for control after his death.
Or maybe secret societies from the start.
That's another angle. Ancient secret societies might have immediately taken control of the knowledge or technology. Then, the cover-up supposedly continued through history.
Perpetuated by.
Groups like ancient orders and mystery schools encoding the knowledge and allegory, maybe the Roman Empire and later the Catholic Church, suppressing alternative histories. Groups like the Knights Templar, Freemasons, or Illuminati inheriting the secret.
Leading right up to today.
And finally, modern governments and the deep state acting as today's custodians, potentially possessing remnants of the tech or monitoring the original discovery sites.
And the bell itself, or the knowledge, it didn't just vanish, it was preserved somehow.
According to the theory, no. The bell itself was meticulously dismantled and hidden, maybe its blueprints destroyed or, again, encoded in obscure texts. The knowledge was passed down through select lineages or secret societies, shrouded in symbolism and ritual to protect it from the uninitiated or those who would suppress it further.
Man, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this theory isn't just about a hidden event. It posits a continuous global conspiracy spanning over 2,000 years.
Involving a vast network of diverse, powerful groups all working somehow in concert to keep this single secret hidden. That's the breathtaking scale of the claim. It's enormous.
Okay, right. So we've laid out the theory and what proponents claim happened. It's a huge story. Now, what do they actually point to as evidence for this extraordinary narrative? What backs it up, in their view?
Well, one of the primary pieces of evidence for believers is simply the persistence of the legend itself.
The fact that the story just wouldn't die.
Exactly. The fact that the Alexander diving story endured for centuries across diverse cultures, despite being rooted in what mainstream history calls fiction, implies to them that it must have a kernel of truth. They keep asking that question. Why invent it? Why keep telling it unless it was based on something real?
And those out-of-place artifacts, the oparts, come up again here.
Yes. Oparts are frequently cited as circumstantial proof. Objects like the Antikythera mechanism, the so-called Baghdad battery, or maybe the Piri-Reis map.
How do they connect?
They used to argue that ancient civilizations were capable of technology far beyond what we're taught, making the existence of Alexander's advanced diving bell seem plausible within this alternative historical framework. If they could build that, maybe they could build the bell.
Underwater discoveries also feed into this, right? Things found on the seabed.
Absolutely. Unexplained seafloor ruins or anomalies, like the Yonaguni Monument off Japan, or the formations at Bimini Road near the Bahamas.
Which mainstream science usually explains differently.
Right, often as natural geological formations. But they are often interpreted by proponents as actual remnants of the very advanced underwater civilizations the theory claims Alexander saw or visited, physical evidence on the ocean floor.
Alexander's own personality is used as evidence, too, his drive.
It is. His historically documented, almost obsessive ambition, his deep curiosity, his alleged belief in his own divine connection. These aspects are seen by believers as making him a uniquely plausible historical figure, someone capable of seeking out and discovering such profound secrets hidden from the rest of humanity. He wasn't just any king.
What about cryptic texts or symbolism, secret messages left behind?
That's another angle. Proponents pore over obscure passages in ancient texts, maybe alchemical symbols, philosophical writings, Gnostic gospels,
Looking for clues.
interpreting them as encoded knowledge or veiled references to what Alexander encountered. They claim these are fragments of the truth that managed to survive the widespread cover-up, hidden in plain sight for those who know how to look.
And I've seen mention of modern whistleblower accounts playing a role, though those sound shaky.
They are typically modern and almost always unverifiable claims. Individuals who allege they were insiders, maybe former members of secret societies, intelligence agencies, obscure government programs claiming to have leaked or hinted at fragments of the truth about ancient suppressed technology or ongoing contact with beings Alexander discovered. Hard to pin down, though.
And the general idea of lost history plays a role, just the feeling that we're not told everything.
Yes, the pervasive belief within many conspiracy frameworks that much of history has been deliberately erased or manipulated by powerful institutions. That makes the idea that this specific profound event was also hidden much more believable within that mindset. If other history can be hidden, why not Alexander's dive?
And finally, it ties into modern UFO sightings, specifically underwater ones.
It often does. Modern sightings of unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, are sometimes linked to the theory. It suggests that the beings or civilizations Alexander encountered are still present, perhaps in deep-sea bases, and that the cover-up of this reality is ongoing, extending from Alexander's era right into the present day.
Okay, so that's the case made for the theory, using this mix of legend, interpretation, selective artifacts, and alleged evidence. There's a very strong counter-argument, right? The mainstream skeptical viewpoint.
And that viewpoint, it has to be said, overwhelmingly dismisses this theory for several compelling reasons.
What's the biggest one?
The first and most significant is its literary origin. The legend comes directly from the Alexander Romance, which is a widely studied and understood work of fiction. Its development and evolution over centuries can be traced, showing it's a product of myth-making and storytelling, not historical reporting. We know where it came from.
And the technology itself, that glass barrel idea.
The technological implausibility is a massive hurdle. Just think about it. The engineering required for a vessel to withstand the crushing pressures of the deep sea, provide a breathable atmosphere, generate light without advanced power sources. It was astronomically beyond 4th century BC capabilities.
A simple glass barrel wouldn't stand a chance.
It would implode instantly at any significant depth, even thick glass. You have to contrast this with the actual very rudimentary diving bells that were only developed much, much later.
When was that?
Like the 16th and 17th centuries. And even those were limited to very shallow depths and just simple observation. Nothing like what the theory proposes for Alexander.
The complete lack of primary historical sources is also absolutely critical, isn't it?
Crucially so. Alexander's own historians, people like Ptolemy or Aristobulus, they meticulously documented his life and feats. Their total silence on anything remotely resembling a deep-sea dive or encountering advanced technology is deafening. It strongly indicates it simply didn't happen. The story appears centuries later, long after anyone who was actually there was alive.
So the medieval art doesn't prove anything either.
Exactly. The artistic license seen in medieval depictions just shows the story was popular and visually compelling as a legend, not that it was based on historical truth. Medieval artists frequently depicted fantastical elements from all sorts of myths and romances. It was part of the culture.
The source also touches on psychological factors. Why people might find these theories convincing, even without solid proof.
Yeah, it highlights how certain cognitive biases can contribute to belief. Things like confirmation bias, where people tend to seek out and interpret information that confirms what they already suspect or believe.
Seeing patterns where there aren't any.
That's patternicity, yeah. The tendency to find meaningful patterns in unrelated data. There's also the appeal to ancient wisdom, this romanticized notion that ancient peoples possessed greater hidden knowledge than us.
And just the power of a good story.
And narrative bias humans are just drawn to compelling stories. And let's face it, a grand conspiracy involving ancient secrets, legendary heroes, and powerful cover-ups is undeniably a dramatic and captivating narrative. Much more exciting than it was just a medieval story.
Okay, and what about mainstream explanations for the evidence the proponents point to? The O parts, the underwater stuff.
Well, O parts often have simpler, well-documented explanations, even if they're still impressive. The Antikythera mechanism is an incredible feat of ancient engineering, no doubt, but it's understood by experts as a complex mechanical astronomical calculator, not alien tech.
The Baghdad battery.
Widely regarded by archaeologists as a simple container, possibly for storing scrolls, not a functional battery providing power.
And the underwater anomalies. Yonaguni, Bimini.
Overwhelmingly considered natural geological formations by geologists who've studied them. They look intriguing, but the scientific consensus points away from artificial structures.
Alexander's ambition.
Historical, yes.
Yeah.
Impressive, absolutely. But not proof he possessed impossible technology.
Cryptic texts.
Often allegorical, philosophical, or simply misinterpreted out of their original context. Easy to read meaning into things that isn't there.
And the whistleblowers.
Typically lack any form of credible, verifiable evidence. Lots of claims. Very little substance you can actually check.
So, pulling it all together, we have this compelling legend, definitely born from fiction. Then the conspiracy theory built on top of it, using a blend of speculation, interpretations, selective evidence. And then the strong counter-arguments rooted in historical methodology, technological reality, and an understanding of human storytelling and psychology.
That sums it up pretty well.
Where does that leave us? Or rather, where does it leave you, the listener?
Well, I think it leaves us examining why this particular story, framed as a conspiracy theory, continues to resonate and capture people's imagination so powerfully. Even when presented with all the historical and technical challenges, what's the appeal?
And why do you think it endures? What is it about this narrative that keeps people hooked, generation after generation?
I think a huge part of it is the allure of the unknown and forbidden knowledge. The deep ocean. It's still Earth's last great unexplored frontier, isn't it? It's full of mystery. The idea that it holds profound secrets, whether lost civilizations, alien life, or world-altering technology, is incredibly captivating.
And making it forbidden knowledge adds another layer.
Absolutely. Add the element of this knowledge being deliberately hidden, suppressed by powerful forces, and it becomes almost irresistible to a curious mind. It feels like you're uncovering something important they don't want you to know.
Alexander's status also plays a significant role, you figure.
Definitely. His mythic status as this larger-than-life, almost superhuman historical figure makes him the perfect vessel for attaching a grand world-altering secret to. It elevates the entire story to an epic, almost mystical level. It wouldn't be the same if it was some minor king no one's heard of.
And it taps into that widespread distrust of mainstream narratives that seems, well, very prevalent today.
It directly feeds into it. For individuals who are already skeptical of official history, the version presented by academia or governments, this theory provides another potential example of how they are allegedly suppressing the truth. It validates that feeling of being lied to or kept in the dark.
There's also the sheer potential involved, the what-if factor. It's exciting.
Oh, absolutely. The possibility that confirmed alien contact, lost advanced technology, or remnants of ancient, hyper-advanced civilizations are hidden beneath the waves. It's incredibly compelling. It offers a much more exciting, mysterious, and fundamentally different version of human history than the standard, maybe drier narrative.
It feels like a perfect mashup of ancient history and modern speculative fiction almost.
It's a perfect fusion of science fiction concepts and history, yeah. It appeals strongly to people who enjoy blending ancient mysteries with ideas like advanced alien technology or pre-human civilizations that defy conventional understanding. It has multiple interest points.
And ultimately, maybe at its heart, it's just an incredibly compelling story.
The power of story is undeniable. Humans are wired to connect through narratives. And a tale featuring a legendary historical figure, the discovery of ultimate secrets, and a ruthless multi-millennial cover-up. It has an irresistible dramatic arc. It resonates on a very deep, almost archetypal level.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this theory isn't just about whether Alexander went for a swim in a magical barrel.
Not really, no. It's about our ongoing human fascination with grand narratives, our persistent search for hidden truths that might explain the unexplained, and our deep-seated wonder about the potential of the unknown. The potential for something out there to fundamentally change our understanding of the world around us and our place in it.
So we've taken this deep dive, haven't we? Journeying from Alexander the Great's historical reality through the fantastical medieval legend of his descent into the sea.
Into the sprawling conspiracy theory built upon that legend.
And then examine the strong counterarguments against it.
We've seen how a story originating in fiction can be reinterpreted through the lens of conspiratorial thinking, weaving together powerful tropes of hidden technology, ancient secrets, and a relentless, unseen cover-up.
And our goal, really, was to unpack this material, to lay out the claims and the critiques so you have the key points from both sides, the mainstream historical perspective and the fascinating, albeit highly speculative, claims of the conspiracy theory.
Right. You get the different angles.
Ultimately, whether you lean towards believing in the possibility of Alexander's real hidden dive, or see it purely as a powerful testament to medieval imagination and storytelling, the story itself serves as a compelling symbol, doesn't it?
It really does.
It makes you stop and wonder, what other depths in history and science and human potential do we still have left to explore?
And perhaps the more intriguing question, are we truly ready for whatever we might find down there?